In the quiet stillness of existence, where the mind seeks answers and the heart yearns for understanding, there lies a path that does not lead to the worship of gods, but to the discovery of the self. This path, often misunderstood, is not a rejection of the divine, but a journey inward, where the concept of a creator God dissolves like mist under the morning sun. To understand why the belief in a supreme being is not central to this way of life, one must first explore the nature of existence itself. Existence, as it is perceived, is a tapestry woven from the threads of cause and effect. Every action, every thought, every breath is interconnected, creating a web of interdependence that leaves no room for a singular, omnipotent force controlling the universe. The idea of a God who creates, judges, and governs contradicts the very essence of this understanding. For if all things arise from conditions, then the notion of a creator who stands apart from these conditions becomes unnecessary. This is not a denial of the sacred, but an acknowledgement that the sacred is found within the fabric of life itself, not in a distant deity. In many traditions, gods are seen as beings who reward the righteous and punish the wicked, who answer prayers and intervene in the affairs of the world. Yet in this path, there is no such figure. Instead, there is the law of karma, the natural principle that actions have consequences. Good deeds lead to favorable outcomes, and harmful actions bring suffering. This is not a system of judgment imposed by an external force, but a natural law, as impartial as the rising and setting of the sun. The responsibility for one's actions lies not with a god, but with the individual. This is a profound shift in perspective, for it places the power and the burden of existence squarely on the shoulders of each person. To those who have grown accustomed to seeking solace in the idea of a benevolent God, this may seem harsh or even frightening, yet it is also liberating. For if there is no God to blame or to beg for favors, then there is also no God to limit one's potential. The path to liberation is not through divine intervention, but through one's own efforts. It is a call to awaken, to take responsibility, and to realize that the power to transcend suffering lies within. This is not to say that the concept of gods is entirely absent. In many cultures, gods are seen as beings who inhabit higher realms, enjoying longer lives and greater powers than humans. Yet even these gods are subject to the same laws of impermanence and karma. They too are trapped in the cycle of birth and death, and they too must seek liberation. In this way, the distinction between gods and humans is not one of essence, but of circumstance. Both are travelers on the same journey, and both must find their way to the end of suffering. The absence of a creator God does not mean the absence of reverence or spirituality. On the contrary, it opens the door to a deeper, more intimate connection with the universe. When one no longer looks to an external deity for answers, one begins to see the sacred in everything. The rustling of leaves, the flow of a river, the smile of a child. The divine is not a being to be worshipped, but a quality to be cultivated. Compassion, wisdom, and mindfulness. These are the true guides on the path to liberation. In the end, the question of whether gods exist is not as important as the question of how one lives. For it is not belief in a God that leads to freedom, but the understanding of the nature of existence and the cultivation of a heart free from greed, hatred, and delusion. This is the essence of the path, a path that does not rely on the promises of gods, but on the power of the human spirit to awaken and transcend. To walk this path is to embrace a profound truth that the universe is not a creation, but a manifestation. It is not something made by a divine hand, but something that arises and ceases in every moment, like waves upon the surface of an endless ocean. This understanding is not born of speculation or faith, but of direct observation. When one looks deeply into the nature of reality, one sees that all things are in a state of constant change. Nothing remains the same, not even for an instant. This impermanence is not a flaw or a tragedy, but the very essence of existence. In many traditions, the idea of a creator God provides a sense of stability and order. It is comforting to believe that there is a being who controls the chaos, who has a plan, and who will ensure that justice is done. Yet, this belief often comes at a cost. It can lead to passivity, as people wait for a God to solve their problems, or to fear, as they worry about divine judgment. It can also create division, as different groups claim to know the will of their God and use this claim to justify conflict. On this path, there is no such reliance on an external savior. Instead, there is the recognition that stability and order are not imposed from above, but arise from within. The mind, when free from greed, hatred, and delusion, becomes a source of peace and clarity. The heart, when filled with compassion and love, becomes a source of harmony and connection. This is not a passive state, but an active one. It requires effort, discipline, and a willingness to confront the deepest truths of existence. The absence of a creator God also challenges the notion of an ultimate purpose or destiny. In many traditions, the belief in a God provides a sense of meaning and direction. Life is seen as a test, a journey, or a mission, with a final goal determined by the divine will. On this path, however, meaning is not something given, but something created. It is found in the way one lives, in the choices one makes, and in the relationships one cultivates. The purpose of life is not to fulfill a divine plan, but to awaken to the truth of existence and to alleviate suffering, both for oneself and for others. This does not mean that life is without direction or value. On the contrary, it is filled with purpose, but this purpose is not imposed from outside. It arises from the understanding that all beings are interconnected, that their happiness and suffering are intertwined, and that the path to liberation is also the path of compassion. To live in this way is to find meaning not in the promises of a God, but in the act of living itself. The comparison with other traditions can be illuminating. In monotheistic religions, the belief in a single, all-powerful God often leads to a focus on faith, obedience, and worship. The relationship with the divine is one of submission and devotion, and the goal is often to attain a heavenly reward or to avoid divine punishment. In contrast, this path emphasizes understanding, insight, and transformation. The relationship with the sacred is one of exploration and realization, and the goal is not to attain a reward, but to awaken to the true nature of existence. This is not to say that one approach is superior to the other. Each tradition arises from a particular cultural and historical context, and each offers its own unique insights and practices. Yet, the differences are significant, and they reflect a fundamental divergence in worldview. Where one tradition sees a universe created and governed by a God, this path sees a universe that is self-arising and self-regulating. Where one tradition seeks to align with the will of a God, this path seeks to align with the natural laws of existence. In the end, the question of whether to believe in a God is less important than the question of how to live a life of wisdom and compassion. For it is not belief that liberates, but understanding. It is not faith that transforms, but insight. And it is not the promise of a God that brings peace, but the realization of the interconnectedness of all things. This is the heart of the path, a path that does not rely on the authority of gods, but on the power of the human mind and heart to awaken and to heal. As we come to the end of this reflection, it is important to remember that the absence of a belief in a creator God does not diminish the depth or richness of this path. Rather, it opens the door to a profound and transformative understanding of existence, one that places the power and responsibility for liberation directly in your hands. This is not a path of blind faith or passive submission, but of active inquiry, mindful living, and compassionate action. It is a path that invites you to look deeply into the nature of reality, to question your assumptions, and to cultivate a heart free from greed, hatred, and delusion. In many ways, this path is a journey of empowerment. It teaches that you are not a helpless being at the mercy of a distant deity, but an active participant in the unfolding of existence. Every thought, every word, every action shapes your reality and the reality of those around you. This understanding is both a great responsibility and a great opportunity. It calls you to live with intention, to act with kindness, and to seek wisdom in every moment. The comparison with other traditions reveals not only differences, but also common ground. At the heart of all spiritual paths is the desire to understand the nature of existence and to find a way to live with meaning and purpose. Whether through faith in a God or through insight into the nature of reality, the goal is ultimately the same: to transcend suffering and to find peace. The diversity of approaches is a testament to the richness of human experience and the many ways in which we seek to make sense of the world. As you reflect on these ideas, I invite you to consider what resonates with your own experience. What brings you closer to understanding? What helps you live with compassion and wisdom? These are the questions that matter, for they guide you on your own unique journey. Thank you for taking the time to listen and reflect. Your presence here is a testament to your curiosity and your desire to understand the deeper truths of existence. If this reflection has sparked something within you, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights and questions are valuable, and they contribute to the collective exploration of these profound topics. If you found this video meaningful, please consider subscribing to the channel. By doing so, you join a community of seekers who are committed to exploring the nature of existence, the paths to liberation, and the ways in which we can live with greater wisdom and compassion. Together, we can support one another on this journey of awakening. Once again, Thank you for being here. May your path be filled with insight, compassion, and peace. Until we meet again, take care and continue to explore the boundless depths of your own mind and heart. Namaste.